Welcome to Tantrum House Studio D. I'm Kevin Delp.
And I'm Melissa Delp.
Today we're looking at Mistborn House War. Mistborn House War is designed by Kevin Wilson and published by Crafty Games. It is a 3 to 5 player negotiation game that has resource management and variable player powers.
The game is based on the novels by Brandon Sanderson with the Mistborn series, and players take on the role of different house factions like House Venture or House Hastings, and you have to work together and negotiate to solve the problems that are facing the final empire. But do you choose to try to gain favor with the Lord Ruler? Or do you sow unrest and try to aid in the collapse of the final empire? You have to choose wisely so you can come out on top when the war is over.
The components include the main game board, player house cards with player aids on the back, personality cards, resource tokens, favor and disgrace tokens, minis for the active player and for the unrest.
This game takes place during the first book in the Mistborn series. The rebels are trying to overthrow the empire. As the head of one of the houses, you have to decide which side you want to back.
At the beginning of the game, each player randomly receives a house card and collects the indicator resources and personality cards. The Vin problem card is shuffled into a certain part of the problem deck. The higher you put it, the shorter your game will be. You seed the game board with a number of problem cards that matches the number of players. Each card shows which column it starts in.
Then players take turns. Your turn has 4 steps. First, you'll collect more resources and cards based on your player card. Then all the problems worsen. You have to move each card forward, but you get to decide in what order. Because if a column is full, then the problem will skip that one and move to the next column. Once a problem passes column 4, then it erupts and you follow any effects that might happen. Like adding unrest, everyone discarding personality cards, or returning certain resources to the supply. The third step is to add a new problem.
Now you get to the main part of your turn. You decide to either pass or deal. To pass, you place the Inquisitor mini on the pass the turn space and collect a resource or a personality card, and then your turn ends. If you decide to deal, you place the Inquisitor on a problem card that you want to solve. The card shows the resources needed to solve it and how many favor points it's worth. Some even have an effect if it's solved, like choosing to ruin another player's resource.
Most of the time, you won't be able to solve the problem just yourself, though, so you'll have to negotiate with the other players. They may offer to spend some of their resources if you give them some of the favor points.
Or players can offer, or threaten, to play some of their personality cards. Some lower or raise the amount of resources needed. Others let you steal cards or resources. If an agreement is reached between players, it is binding for that turn. Players pay the resources, the favor tokens are distributed, and the problem card is discarded. Then it's the next player's turn.
Play continues until one of 3 endgame triggers occurs. If the Vin problem is solved, the final empire is saved, and the player with the highest score wins. If the Vin problem erupts, but the unrest level stays below 8, the highest score wins. But if the unrest score ever reaches 8, then the final empire collapses, and the player with the lowest score wins the game. The new leaders don't look kindly on those who are in the Lord Ruler's favor.
So this game is all about the negotiation. Can you persuade players to give up more favor points to help you advance in the game?
Or can you persuade the active player to deal with you instead of somebody else?
There was this one game, Katie had all the resources to complete one of the problem cards, but instead she's decided to negotiate with the players and demand them to give up their resources, not offer them any points, just say, I won't ruin one of the resources, which is one of the solving of the problems.
Yeah, Will kind of resisted that demand, and it didn't go well for him. She actually did ruin one of his resources, and his house didn't produce a whole lot, so throughout the rest of the game, he didn't have a lot of resources for negotiation or for solving problems.
Well, that tells me that he should then try to sow unrest to try and get the lowest score and win the game.
Although if you're too obvious about it, the other players might try to work against you.
The illustrations are okay, but not amazing. The graphic design is easy to understand, especially on the cards since there are many different resources in the game. It helps players see at a glance what is needed to solve a problem.
The personality cards add a lot of options to the game. Some of them are one-time use cards, but others are lasting and then they'll have ongoing effects. There are also some cards that can give you points at the end of the game, but they're usually played face down so your opponents don't know what they are. Now, normally you cannot play any cards after a deal has been reached, but there are a few that are marked sly, and you can play them after the deal. So just when the other players think they have everything settled, you can swoop in and kind of change things.
Now, we also didn't mention that you can actually bribe players with resources, not with cards. That's specifically in the rules that you can't bribe players with giving them cards. I don't know, personally, I might house rule that one, but, you know.
Yeah, I don't know about that one. For me, I usually don't like games with a lot of negotiation and high player interaction, but I really do love the Mistborn series, so I was interested to try this game and see what it was all about. And I do think that the theme comes through in the different houses, also in the problem cards.
Yeah, there's Breeze and Spook and Vin.
And then also in the personality cards, the actions that they associate with coin shots and lurchers and soothers, they all make sense in the world of Mistborn. So even though it's not my favorite type of mechanisms that the game uses, I still found it interesting because of the theme and then also those choices you have about whether you want to strategize for the highest points or the lowest points.
Yeah, so if you're looking for a 3 to 5 player negotiation game or you love the Mistborn series from Brandon Sanderson, then check out Mistborn House War by Crafty Games at your local FLGS and be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Down and up on this one. Where do you want me to hold it? I can hold it here for you.
If I hold it, it'll anchor my hand a little better so I'm not flying all over the place. This is recording, isn't it?